Good evening, America. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from the nation's capital and the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. You know this, Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. And right now, you can go to wiredtofishcoffee.com and get 10% off their new Inflation Buster coffee bag. That's right, 2 and 5 pound bags. They'll last you a long time, and you'll get an incredible price, below $20 on the 2 pound bag. If you go right now to wired2fishcoffee.com, use the promo code JustNews at checkout. Go say thank you for the great support they gave here at Real America's Voice and Just the News. All right, we start tonight with some exclusive news from Just the News. A short while ago, we confirmed that there are not 1, but 2 security episodes that are being investigated inside the United States Capitol. Both alleged episodes occurred around the last 2 times that President Trump spoke inside the Capitol. The most recent appearance by President Trump, of course, was the joint session of Congress on March 14th. Just the News has obtained a Capitol Police Department report showing that a person brought a firearm into the Capitol complex through the House Cannon Office building on the day the president spoke. We are told that that person had claimed he had gone through the magnetometers at the Capitol previously without having his gun detected, and that's prompted concerns about screening procedures, particularly on such a sensitive day as a presidential address to a joint session of Congress. Now, the other episode allegedly occurred 3 months ago, but we're just learning about it today. It is alleged to have occurred on January 20th. That's when the president was making his inaugural address in the Capitol. Congressional officials told us today that they were just recently alerted to an allegation that a person, possibly armed because of their job in law enforcement, they were properly armed, may have gone around a magnetometer that day in the Capitol. We are told that the House Sergeant at Arms informed the leadership of Congress recently and that a Capitol Inspector General's investigation has begun. Capitol Police confirm the gun incident in the Cannon Office building on March 4th, but say they did know what we were talking about the January 20th episode. The good news is the man who will kick off our show in just a few minutes does know the very latest details. He's the chairman of the House Administration Committee that oversees security at the U.S. Capitol. Chairman Bryan Steil from Wisconsin will join us for an exclusive interview in just a few minutes. Meanwhile, the debate over federal judges and their ability to stop President Trump from executing his executive powers rages on. The most recent episode occurred over the weekend when a judge ordered the president to turn a plane around. You heard me right. Turn a plane around that had gang members that were being deported to Latin America. The White House says that the plane had already left American airspace before the judge's orders were filed in writing, and that they believe that they complied with the judge's order and continue to comply with that order. We'll have a lot of conversation about that in the show ahead. One other important story I'd like to quickly mention. President Trump just mentioned a short while ago that the JFK assassination documents, the final tranche, are to be released tomorrow without any or many redactions. That's what President Trump said. We'll have that covered over at justthenews.com. Now's a great time to bring in my amazing co-host, Amanda Head. Amanda, I know you're watching a lot of other headlines today, so at the White House.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
Questions today. It's
absolutely,
good.
Yes. Happy Monday to all of you, and we have some interesting polling news to get to. With NBC putting out one that has generated a lot of looks over on social media. It says that the Democrat Party's popularity has hit a new low. Take a look.
Our new NBC News poll had just 27% of respondents with positive feelings toward the Democratic Party. That is the lowest number we've recorded for the Democratic Party in NBC News polling dating back to 1990.
Put that, what you just showed, in contrast with the Republicans. Now, look, neither party, when you ask folks about them, is really popular right now. The Republicans are underwater, 39 positive, 49 negative. But they're only 10 points underwater. As you said, the Democrats right now, barely 1 in 4 voters say they have a positive view of the Democratic Party, an outright majority negative, 28 points underwater. Again, that's almost 3 times as underwater as the Republican brand is.
Yeah, very interesting numbers, and it really isn't hard to see why, because President Trump has painted Democrats into a corner early on in his presidency in a plethora of issues, and that certainly doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. But for example, his stance on protecting women's sports has caused the Democrats to swing very hard to the left on that issue, standing up for transgender women, or as most people refer to them, men, over biological women. And that's not a popular stance, and you're seeing in real time the Democrats try and figure out how to grapple with that. Do they triple down and risk more public backlash, or do they give in like Gavin Newsom seemed to do with Charlie Kirk a few days ago, only to get shouted down by his own base? It's an interesting problem, and one that they haven't seemed to figure out the answer to it just yet. Now, we are seeing the same thing play out to various different degrees with a bunch of issues like government funding. We just saw how that worked last week. Did Democrats want to be tied to shutting the government down? Turns out the answer was no on that one. Or immigration. Do Democrats really want to stand on the side of dangerous Tren de Aragua gang members when Trump deports them? And speaking of immigration and Tren de Aragua, before we get to our first guest of the evening, I have to play this clip of Trump border czar Tom Homan, who was asked about using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport dangerous illegal aliens. The reporter asking the question was wondering if Homan had an issue with using a 200-year-old law, and this is how he answered it.
You say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as the Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
But some would say this is...
How many more times do you plan?
You got a problem with the Constitution, you got a problem with me. That's my mashup of Don Corleone and Tom Homan in one statement.
How about that? Yeah. You're talking about Democrats. I was talking to a Democrat about 3 hours ago, and he said, we're so far underwater that we're thinking of taking our logo, the donkey, and turning it to SpongeBob. So that gives you a sense of how bad things are. All right. As we promised at the top of the show, joining the show now, the chairman of the House Administration Committee, the man who oversees Capitol security and election integrity and so much more, Chairman Bryan Steil from the great state of Wisconsin. Mr. Chairman, good to have you back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
We love having you on. We always learn things when you come on. I want to walk through these two episodes quickly. We mentioned them at the top of the show. The first apparently is alleged to have occurred on March 4th. We do have a Capitol Police report. A man comes through a magnetometer at the Cannon building a few hours before President Trump spoke, pops for a gun, but later tells him, I came through with a gun previously, didn't have any problem. What do you know about that episode, sir?
My priority is to make sure that the Capitol campus is secure for members, visitors, and staff members, but also open and accessible. And that's a difficult challenge, but that's the challenge we give the U.S. Capitol Police, and we require that they execute on that flawlessly. There are serious allegations as to what you just mentioned regarding individuals who have attempted or who have brought weapons into the United States Capitol. There is a full investigation ongoing into this. We have an Inspector General report due in the near future. I don't want to get ahead of that investigation, but what I am committed to is making sure that we keep the U.S. Capitol campus both open to the American public so that they can come and meet with their member of Congress, but also secure so those visitors, members, and staff members are all safe.
Yeah, I know you've taken that very seriously and been working on it. The early episode is alleged to have occurred on January 20th. That's the Inauguration Day speech. And my understanding is that the House Sergeant at Arms recently informed the committee and leadership that maybe someone went around a magnetometer. Do you have any more details on that, or is that what's being investigated right now?
I'm going to allow this investigation to play itself all the way out before I come forward with public information. But I can tell you some of the reports are concerning regarding exactly what happened as it relates to that individual, either attempting or coming into the United States Capitol with a weapon. And what we ask our U.S. Capitol Police officers is a difficult task. I mean, it is difficult to day in and day out secure the U.S. Capitol while we keep it open to the public. But we must make sure that we keep the Capitol campus 100% safe. And so I don't want to get ahead of this investigation, but rest assured, when we have the final report, we're going to be sharing it with the American people, because transparency is a key component of our democracy.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's not just elected members that deserve to be safe at the Capitol. And I keep seeing all these scrawny trees around Washington that I'm told in 3 weeks' time are going to have pink blossoms all over them. Of course, everybody's going to be flocking to the Capitol and to the Capitol with an O. During that time, I know that there are a lot of preparations being made to secure it and make sure that it's suitable for the influx of tourists.
Absolutely. You know, we had snow on Sunday in Wisconsin because we got snow for a long ways yet, probably. Unfortunately, I'd love to be a little bit warmer in the home state of Wisconsin. But yeah, Washington, D.C. Brings in a lot of tourists, as it should, not only through the spring season, but really all year. We have school groups and others that come to our nation's capital. And what really sets the U.S. Capitol apart, meaning the Capitol building apart, from other capitals around the world is how open, available, and accessible it is to the American public. As members of parliament or other governments come to the United States and meet with me, one of the things they always are surprised about is that there are so many tourists and individuals in the halls of Congress. And that's actually what makes our country so great. One of the rights enshrined in the First Amendment is redress from your government, that you, in my opinion, have a right to meet with your member of Congress, to discuss what's occurring with our federal government and how it's impacting you. And for far too long, even in COVID, we saw then Speaker Pelosi restrict the movement of the public from being able to come into the United States Capitol. We should be open, available to the American public. And that's why the work of the U.S. Capitol Police is not only difficult, but why it's so absolutely important that they execute on their task flawlessly every single day to make sure that we're keeping the campus safe, but that we're making sure from everyone from school groups to individuals that have ideas and suggestions that they want to share with their respective elected representative.
And we'd be remiss not to mention that you worked since you became chairman of the House Administration Committee to make the Capitol a little more accessible after the COVID lockdowns, and the great work you and your Republican colleagues did to make it more accessible. So I want to talk to another subject that you've been working on for a while, an investigation into Act Blue, the large online Democratic fundraising operation. We're told that a small number of those suspicious activity reports from the Treasury Department were shown by the Biden administration to Congress. Not a lot, and maybe more are on the way. Can you bring us up to speed on what you saw and what you hope to see soon?
Yeah, I appreciate it, because this is a really important topic to make sure that all Americans have confidence in our campaign finance system and making sure that it's free from foreign interference or foreign money. The good news is we now have President Trump in office, and we have a Republican and President Trump nominated and confirmed Secretary of the Treasury and other officials across our government. So instead of being stonewalled like we were during the Biden administration, as we asked questions related to these suspicious activity reports, SARS, that were filed as it relates to Act Blue, we now have a partner in this administration to help us get to the bottom of it. So our investigation is continuing, it's picking up speed, and we're going to continue to work in particular with the United States Department of the Treasury, as well as the United States Department of Justice. With Pam Bondi as Attorney General, we have a real opportunity to hold bad actors accountable. The Biden administration liked to look the other way when the bad actor was a Democrat. We know that occurred far too many times. But now we have a real opportunity to actually investigate, and if the Department of Justice finds an individual who's engaged in wrongdoing, hold them accountable. Then at the committee level, I'm very focused on making sure that we get the legislation correct, meaning let's prevent this from ever happening in the future. And that is a legislative process, and there's legislative changes that we need to put in place. I have legislation, for example, that would require the CVV number, a 3 or 4 digit code on the back of a credit card, for being required to be used if an individual makes a donation, to reject prepaid gift cards, which we know are a mechanism that an individual could use to launder money into the U.S. campaign finance system. And so this is an all of the above approach. It's continuing our investigation, working with our partners in the Trump administration, and then moving forward on legislation to prevent any type of abuse in the future.
That's so important.
Mr. Chairman, my partner here was just letting me cheat off of his paper, so I wanted to ask you about this publication of Chinese origin that used to be circulated at the House, no longer, right?
This is so important. Abe Hamadeh from Arizona brought this to our attention, that Chinese propaganda was effectively being circulated through the halls of Capitol Hill. There's no place in the halls of Capitol Hill for Chinese propaganda. And so we work to prevent this from coming into the United States Capitol with a free service that was being provided. We should be getting information to members of Congress, but what we should be doing is getting the truth, not Chinese propaganda. And so we shut this down. It's a small step forward in all the work that we have to do to push back against the aggressive Communist Party of China as they try to influence U.S. policy. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to hold China accountable. And with President Trump in the White House and an America First agenda, I think we have a huge opportunity to continue that work.
Yeah, you've done such amazing work. I've been in this town 35 years. I've never seen the House Administration Committee be more relevant, more active than it has been under your leadership. Real quickly, just a quick question. We've got about a minute left. Some of that election integrity legislation that you've been working on, might some of that make it into the continuing resolution in the spring? Is that one possible vehicle for getting it enacted?
You know, I would love to. This is all a question of whether or not we can get it through the Senate Byrd rule. The Senate parliamentary process makes you want to pound your head against a brick wall if you're a House member like me. And so would I like to include it? Absolutely. Will the Senate parliamentarian allow it? It's not totally clear yet. We're going to look, though, for every avenue we can to make sure that we get these really important election integrity provisions enacted into law.
Yeah, such important stuff. We're going to be following that closely because you've been leading on that so much. Mr. Chairman, great honor to having you on the show. Thank you for helping us out in all these big stories, and look forward to having you back on soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. More, so much more. There's so many things going on in Congress right now. When we come back, Congressman Mike Rulli will be here, and we'll have that right after these messages. Folks, let me encourage you to do something right now. You need to join AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. Right now, I'm not kidding. If you care about your country, your freedom, and your hard-earned money, then AMAC is the organization that fights for you. Unlike the other so-called senior organization that sold out to the radical left, AMAC stands for conservative values, limited government, lower taxes, protecting your Social Security, and of course, defending our Constitution. And listen to this. Right now, you can sign up for a 5-year membership, just like I have, for just $31. It's normally $60. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Visit amac.us/justnews to join right now. AMAC is growing fast because patriots like you and me are joining the fight. They give you exclusive discounts on travel insurance and more. I use that all the time. But most importantly, they give you a voice in Washington. So don't wait. Join AMAC today. Go to amac.us/justnews.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. Republicans passed that CR late last week, but now the real hard work begins of actually identifying and cutting areas of wasteful spending in government to reconcile it. Can they do it? Joining the show now to talk about that and much more is Congressman Mike Rulli from the great state of Ohio. Congressman, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Sir, Democrats are catching a whole lot of heat, particularly Minority Leader Chuck Schumer for waffling, and then ultimately they say, Democrat detractors say caving to President Trump, but I think this is a good thing for the country that the government didn't shut down. But like I said, the real work begins. What do you want to see in this big, beautiful bill? What are the top points that you want to see a part of it?
Well, I think for once we're actually on the winning side of the chess game. I think we saw Mitch McConnell, how many times he would cave, because the bottom line is the AOCs and all the different Democrats that are running their mouth right now. You would have owned the government shutdown. You've made a career out of saying we're the ones that want to shut down the government. In reality, it was always you. We came up with a CR that was cleaner than a whistle. My little expression was, it's like Irish Springs, it's clean as a whistle. And we took playbook out of Biden and playbook out of Obama, how to go extra clean, and we put them to the mat. We caught them sleeping. Now we bought time until September. Well, this is what's going to happen, buying time until September. And they actually know that Crockett and AOC running their mouth like that, they know what's going to happen. And let's explain that. What's going to happen is right now, the House has won a double victory. We boxed in the Democrats right where they belong, and now we're going to triple down on boxing them in. And that's going to be the big, beautiful bill, because every tax break's going to be in there. Borders are going to be shut down forever. Michael Savage taught us borders, language, culture. We're going to shut down that border, and we're going to spur growth within that stock market like you can't believe. It's all going to go up, and now is a perfect time to invest. But what you're going to see happen, though, just so everyone's on the same page, the House always said it was going to be one beautiful bill, not two bills like Lindsey want. We already saw Lindsey made a couple boo-boos with Zelensky and the gang. So not two little bills, one big, beautiful bill. And this is what the president wants, and this is what we're going to deliver. And how we're going to deliver it is, we have the 2 or 3 seat majority. Unfortunately, we had a couple Democrats that passed away, so that majority grew a little bit. But what people aren't understanding is, in the beginning of May, We're going to get 2 seats in Florida. So our majority is going to rise by 5 to 6 votes. Even if we lose Massey, and God bless Thomas Massey, good patriot, just sometimes hard to get that vote from him, we have enough spare to make up for it. So what's going to happen is all these trade deals and all these tariffs that everyone's losing their mind at, they've obviously never read Art of the Deal. And then within Art of the Deal, mixed in with this big, beautiful bill, mixed in with the CR, God willing, if God is on our side and puts that magical dust on the United States of America, we're going to see economic explosion before Christmas. You already see it in eggs. That's actually my personal industry. Eggs have dropped $2 to $3 in the last 10 days. Let's do this.
Yeah, those numbers came out today. That is a big deal and fulfills a big promise that President Trump made. That is amazing with the eggs. So I want to turn to another subject. These judges that the judges are increasingly issuing rulings that go against President Trump's executive power, things like deporting a gang member. I talked to Alan Dershowitz today. He thinks that Congress might consider a law that says one judge in one district can't do a nationwide injunction on executive power matters. Are people in Congress starting to talk about reining in these judges somehow?
We're absolutely going to rein him in. And, you know, one of my best friends, Jim Jordan of the Judiciary, he's going to lead the charge. Chairman Comer is going to back him up. We got 2 amazing guys at the helm with that gavel, and they're not going to let it go. You know, I think we saw the hypocrisy on full display once again. When President Trump visited the Department of DOJ, you saw what he said. He said the lawfare of this world is over. And then the Democrats had the gall to come back and say that we're the ones doing lawfare. You prosecuted him in the state. You prosecute him in the federal. And then Director Wray came in from Judiciary when I was on Judiciary and said that the FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago was justified when they found out absolutely nothing. Now you have a low-level federal judge trying to act like he's Caesar. This guy's going to get knocked down the peg. He has misinterpreted the law on every different level. The Supreme Court's got to turn that into garbage. And we saw the president of El Salvador when he said, oops, a little too late. He already has them. And I think we know how he handles these terrorist organizations like MS-13. He puts them away forever like they should be.
Congressman, you said something that intrigued me. You said make sure the border is shut down forever. But we saw during President Trump's first term, he cleaned up the border. I think not to the degree that he wanted to, but it certainly was better than it was under Joe Biden, who opened up the floodworks again. How can Congress make sure that this time the border shutting down is longer lasting than double mint gum? Because that's how quickly it disappeared last time.
I love that. So I think there's a lot of different pathways. I think we see some of the Democrats starting to break ranks from that far left progressive. You know, when you look at someone like Fetterman and you look at a couple of the Dems that already jumped over on the CR, you know, on these close districts, you know, Trump's approval rating right now is still through the roof. You know, Doge is still the most popular thing. I'm a proud member of the Doge caucus, but I think you even see it going even further than this. NBC and CNN had a poll on the Democrats over the weekend, and they asked, I don't know, I think it was blocks of like 5,000 to 10,000 people what their approval rating of the Democratic Party. One of them, I think it was NBC, had the approval rating at 23, and the other one had approval rating at 27, disapproval at 55 and 57. These aren't our listeners. These aren't your listeners or Fox or Newsmax or InfoWar. These are their listeners. So if their listeners are upset about it, and you think about the progression of the Democrat National Committee, they're going triple down on progressive instead of moving towards the center. And I think people like Governor Shapiro and Fetterman, and there's more out there, the normal Democrats that actually love America, I think they're going to step up. I think they're going to vote with us. And I mean, if they want to keep their jobs, it would be very wise of them to do so.
Yeah, no doubt. Congressman, I'm going to ask a little bit about one of the controversies still floating around from the Biden era, and that is the possibility that he may have used an auto pen to sign legislation from Congress, pardons, and other executive actions. Your thoughts on that? And is Congress likely to weigh in at some point? For instance, are some of those Democratic legislations, laws that were passed potentially void if the president used a auto pen?
I look to my Twitter followers on this. I mean, we would love to really clean his clock over this. I think Joe has paid the price. I think, you know, I compare Joe to Caesar on the Senate floor when his own stabbed him in the back, you know, Pelosi and all the different crew that basically just threw him out to the wolves. I think Joe Biden has learned his lesson. However, you know, we mentioned before about the border. We have to codify this into law while we control Congress. And if we could grow the membership leadership next year, we could really codify all these laws so they just can't simply be overturned. Remember what Obama warned you at? He said, I could run everything by a BlackBerry and a pen, and he meant it. And Joe Biden tripled down on that, weaponized the Department of Justice, and they just kept going with it. I think if we look at common sense, and we're the party of common sense, the Republican Party is also the party of love. Now, my opponents hate when I say that, but we love everyone. Our tent is growing by leaps and bounds. You look at Latino or Black America, they're joining our ranks by groves because they want a better life for themselves. They want to save prosperity of a better tomorrow. And I think you're going to see it all happening this year. With that big, beautiful bill, this economy is going to go like a rocket. I think there's a lot to be hopeful for.
Congressman, I just want to wrap up with one thing. We were just showing Presidents Obama and Biden on the screen, and they were two of the available options in a CNN poll that asked the respondents who they thought represented the core values the most of the Democrat Party, and neither one of them won. Actually, the plurality went to no one, and I think that's the problem. But of the humans who got a vote, AOC was top of the list. What do you make of that?
She actually sits right next to me in energy and commerce. And so AOC is a little bit more dangerous than people understand because I think she has the same philosophy. She's wired like Bernie Sanders, but she doesn't come across it. She's already done 2 or 3 bipartisan bills. And if you remember after the election, what did she say? She says, if you're one of my voters that I was driving around my district and I saw an AOC sign and I also saw a Trump sign, I want you to call me. I want you to talk to me about populism. We need to be careful of her. And here's something else. And I am not giving AOC props, but I have to. She's in committee the entire time. When you look on C-SPAN and you look at these committees, a lot of the members get busy with all these other things on their schedule. So a lot of times they dip in and out of committee all day long. Some of them don't even come to committee. AOC is in committee the entire time, and she takes notes the entire time. She is a very dangerous opponent. She could rise the ranks. And I mean, I wish we could break through to her like we did with Fetterman. I think when Fetterman first came out, we couldn't believe it. I fly out of Pittsburgh. I've actually been on the plane several times with Fetterman. He believes in tax cuts. He believes in the protection of Israel. He is anti-destroying our universities. I wish AOC would go to that. I'm a little bit worried because this is what's going to happen. Without controlling the extreme left flank of the Democratic Party, you are not going to rise. Like right now, Gavin Newsom has a podcast where he's having, Bannon and all the conservatives are going on his show where he's showing how conservative he is. I think AOC is being a little bit more dangerous. She's actually going to her extreme left. She's going to win him over. And if she makes progress like that, you'll see her run to the center to try to rise to the level that we would all fear.
Mm-hmm. I have to admit, though, I too would love to pick the brain of someone who had both an AOC and a Trump sign in their yard. I feel like that would be some interesting and possibly conflicting opinions. Ohio Congressman Mike Rulli, always a pleasure having you here with us, sir. Thank you for being here. All right, everybody, coming up, we're going to have then Vice President Joe Biden's stenographer on the show. What's he going to tell us about the deep state and the government and what he saw? That's next.
Hey, America, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning, and now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. That's important, right? Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. Now, if you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team are going to help you find the right plan for you. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code JUSTNEWS. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT. Welcome back, everybody. With so many questions about Joe Biden's auto pen and the executive powers of presidents, we thought we'd turn to someone who knows a lot about it. He was the official record keeper for the White House for, I think, 3 different presidents. He's a former White House stenographer who also spent 6 years with Joe Biden. That's going to be a fun conversation. Currently, the author of the book, An Insurmountable Evil. Mike McCormick is here to join us. Mike, good to have you on.
Hey, John, good to see you.
Good to have you on. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the auto pen. You were around a lot of presidents and vice presidents. Did you ever see the auto pen used to sign a bill or a pardon?
No. And why would they? And, you know, I was on Fox News in September of 2020 saying that Joe Biden was a shell of his former self. That was September 2020.
That's right.
And we saw what really the press hid from us. So the fact that he wound up using an auto pen is a disgrace. It's a disgrace to the presidency, and it's an absolute disgrace to what the White House media, quote unquote media, did for 4 years covering for him.
Mike, it seems like the prevailing mentality among someone who serves the country as president would be that they want to use their own hand, their own pen, their own fingers to sign documents of import, whether it's a pardon, whether it's an executive order, a piece of legislation. Do you think that the auto pen usage under Joe Biden was a necessity and not necessarily a desire?
I personally think he had enough cognizant ability to instruct his inner circle to use it, and they probably were close enough to him. I'm thinking particularly about his advisor, Steve Ricchetti, or Mike Donilon, who worked with him when I was working with him when he was vice president. And then they came aboard in the White House and were with him all 4 years. So they saw his decline. They hid his decline. But they probably knew that he was also cognizant enough behind the scenes to be able to say, I want this, I want that. And they made sure it happened. Physically, he probably wasn't awake or aware or able, but they, put the pen to the paper. I don't know if Jill Biden would have done that. There's some pictures of her doing it. I don't know if she would have done it in particularly those situations. But yeah, it's an inner circle thing, and Joe probably had his finger on the pulse of it. And he wouldn't have given up control. I don't think he's just too much of a control guy to do that. He quit presidency campaign, but he just is kind of a strange character in our history. So
yeah, I think, and we're still learning. It's funny, his presidency's over, but I finally feel we're going to learn more about his presidency since he left than we did when he was there. I want to ask, you did see presidents sign bills and you did see presidents sign pardons because you were the official stenographer. Most presidents took the job of signing a piece of legislation seriously, correctly?
Oh, yeah. They do it in a table with, 15 congressmen standing around them or congresswomen, members of Congress. They make a big ceremony of it. Just President Trump makes a ceremony of it. So, but, what we're talking about, he was auto penning the pardons. The pardons came out at the end of the term, so that was always sort of just announced. We didn't see the signing. Yeah. So did he do it with an auto pen? Yeah, probably he did. I don't know if Barack Obama did or not. I don't think he needed to, but Joe Biden probably needed to.
Mike, I imagine you have witnessed many interesting things over your tenure, but I know one instance in particular took place when Joe Biden was vice president aboard Air Force Two. Can you tell us about it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a crime. I mean, Joe Biden committed a crime in front of me. I told the FBI about this 2 years ago in an FBI witness tip. We were flying into Ukraine. He sent Jake Sullivan back to talk to the press. Jake Sullivan was anonymous. He was a senior administration official. So when I sent the tip into the FBI, I said, look, this is a crime that occurred because I can tell you the identity of that senior administration official is Jake Sullivan. The press asked him, you're going into Ukraine. What are you bringing for energy assistance? And he answered them 4 things. 2 of them directly benefited Burisma, the natural gas company that Hunter was secretly on the board of. And Joe Biden knew he was on the board of that. So that's malfeasance. And the fact that Jake Sullivan went back and participated in that meant that that's a conspiracy. And that conspiracy went all the way through the presidency, the 2024 presidency, because he was covering for him. So there's the conspiracy of the crime that was committed in 2014 and the conspiracy of the crime that continued to cover up all through the President Biden's presidency.
Mike, real quickly, we won a lawsuit with the National Archives. We got a lot more of the pseudonymous private email accounts of Joe Biden. Not as many as we'd like, because there's 82,000 documents. We've up to a couple thousand. But what we saw in the last batch, which just came out in the last couple of days, was extensive amount of very sensitive information going to his private email address, briefing books for the president, foreign leader discussions. When you were around the vice president during his vice presidency, did you see him use an iPad or his private email account at any time?
I never did. I had a chance to look deeply into the Hunter Biden laptop. I was given a copy of that. And I actually, right now, let me talk about this on your show. I'm calling for an investigation of former special counsel David Weiss. I think he was obstructing justice. 2 years ago, I sent him information that I was a witness, what I just described to you, and he refused to put me in front of his grand jury. And so that's obstructing justice. He basically shielded the Biden crime family. And I know Garrett Ziegler was trying to get information in front of him, and they never used it. That's obstructing justice. So right now, I'm calling for a grand jury investigation of the Biden Department of Justice Special Counsel's Office that was instrumental in shielding Hunter and Joe Biden from justice when they had witnesses that could have testified to their crimes, and they were never used.
Wow, interesting stuff. We'll see if this current Justice Department goes that route. Well, they have lots of opportunity to go back and revisit things that maybe didn't get thoroughly investigated the first time. Mike, you've been a witness to so much history. Thanks for joining us today, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, great to have you. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll tell you about an organization that is working every day to help wounded police officers and their families. That's next.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. We all owe a great debt of gratitude to the law enforcement officers who protect us and put their lives on the line for us every day. We have one such story to bring you tonight. A Ferguson, Missouri officer, Travis Brown, suffered a traumatic brain injury after being attacked during protests on August 9th. And the Wounded Blue, an organization that supports injured and disabled law enforcement officers, was able to raise $60,000 for Officer Brown and his family to help him recover. So joining us now to discuss that is former police officer, detective, and lieutenant. He is also the founder and chair of the board of the Wounded Blue, Randy Sutton. Randy, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
No, thank you guys so much for having me and allowing me to talk about this.
Absolutely. And I know we've had you on the show before. You've been on our podcast. You have done a lot of fundraising for a lot of men and women in blue. But this particular cause seemed to catch like wildfire.
Well, you know, this incident is so heartbreaking. TJ, Travis Brown, is in a facility, a rehab facility in Atlanta, Georgia, trying to recover from a traumatic brain injury, which left him in a coma for more than 4 months after being attacked in Ferguson, Missouri, when he was just literally standing there monitoring a protest. And this coward attacked him, knocked him down. He hit his head, and it was literally in a coma for more than 4 months. He's got 2 young children. And the Wounded Blue, one of the things that we do is we help make Christmas happen for the families of officers who are severely injured because of the financial burden that these injuries, incur. Well, we were some people who wanted to remain anonymous, but what they wanted to be known as Americans who care, donated. What we're doing is $5,000 a month for the entire year of 2025 to help the family of Travis Brown maintain the ability to be by his side and help him through this horrendous injury.
Amazing. I don't think people know, we hear about the officers who are killed in line of duty, but the number of injuries and catastrophic injuries are far more. And oftentimes the statistics aren't talked about. Can you give us a sense of the challenges and the size of injuries or growth of injuries that police officers are facing these days?
Well, I'm going to hit you with a statistic that is almost unbelievable. And that is that according to the last year, the FBI did their statistics, 79,000 American law enforcement officers were physically assaulted. That means they were shot, they were stabbed, they were beaten, they were hit with bricks. Many of those injuries were catastrophic and severe, resulting in the loss of their careers as law enforcement officers. And that's what the Wounded Blue, that's why we exist, is to help officers who've been injured either physically or emotionally and psychologically, because post-traumatic stress can be as real as a bullet. And believe me, thousands of law enforcement officers are suffering from both physical and psychological injuries. In fact, I am right now in New Mexico, where a police officer was wrongfully convicted of manslaughter for a perfectly justifiable shooting that was ruled justifiable until the liberal attorney general went after him. And they are dealing with the fallout of seeing their brother wrongfully convicted of a crime after he attacked a police officer, tried to take his weapon, and got his taser out. And before he could use it, another officer shot him, and that officer is now in prison.
Wow.
Randy, I know you still communicate with many law enforcement on a daily basis, and I think that prior to the election, there was already a movement back in the direction of favorability for law enforcement. I think a lot of people had buyer's remorse after the whole defund police movement. But then President Trump came in office, and it seems like optimism and support for law enforcement is on the rise. Are you getting that sense?
I am indeed. Of course, I was given the great honor of being a speaker at the Republican National Convention on law enforcement, where I got to salute my president, which was an incredible honor for me. And I got hundreds of messages from police officers from around the nation saying, we felt like you and the president were saluting us. And I can't tell you what a shot in the arm that is for America's police. After what has happened over the last 5 or so years, especially under the Biden administration, where the Department of Justice and the FBI were actually weaponized against the police, we're seeing that day has ended. But there's still a long way to go, and there's a lot of fallout. The state of Illinois is right now trying to pass a law that if you're mentally ill, it's legal to attack a police officer. I mean, it's shocking that still in this day and age, when America has spoken about how they feel about the liberal madness, the state of Illinois is still trying to give an affirmative defense to attacking a police officer if you're going through a mental, breakdown.
Yeah.
Randy, before we let you go, I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of people in our audience who want to support you and your organization and donate. Where can they find more about the Wounded Blue?
TheWoundedBlue.org. That's TheWoundedBlue.org. That's where our website is. Read about us. And if you are a law enforcement officer and you're struggling because of either a physical or emotional, injury, please reach out to us. Never forgotten, never alone is our motto, and we live by it.
Randy, real quickly, for that one officer that we started this segment, is there a way to direct, because obviously that you have him taken care of for the next year, but he's going to need years of help. If someone wants to specifically direct to that officer, how do they do that?
They can donate through the Wounded Blue and contact me, Randy at the Wounded Blue, Randy at TheWoundedBlue.org, and we will make sure that donation goes directly to Travis and his family.
Yeah, what an amazing man. What a terrible tragedy.
I know, and I know those law enforcement officers and their families are very grateful, and we are grateful as well. Randy, always great to have you on. Founder of the Wounded Blue. Everybody go check them out. Randy, great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, one final break and then one final segment to take us out on this Monday. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I know you acknowledged it at the top. I did not, so here I am acknowledging it now. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I know that we have a few more headlines that we want to get to. Let's fire it off with Secret Service.
Yeah, President Trump tweeting a little bit ago, truthing just a little bit ago, that he's revoked, or that the Secret Service protection for Hunter Biden has been revoked. That just happened a few minutes ago. We're going to have that up in Just the News in a second. And then the hearing over the judge who said that the planes with those de Agua and other players should turn back and come back to the United States. Judge was incredulous. He said there might have been possible defiance, that's his words, of his order. And he asked, under what theory of law would the Trump administration interpret that once the planes hit international airspace, they still weren't subject to his authority? No ruling here, but it was a tense and terse meeting and probably the beginning of a long legal proceeding about the president's authority under the Alien Enemies Act. And so I think that's going to be a big deal going forward. We're watching that at Just the News right now as well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting today. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt articulated exactly who was on that flight. She didn't give out names, addresses, social security numbers, but she said, listen, we have this number of, Sinaloan, this number of Tren de Aragua. And she really, she knew her stuff, and she knew exactly how to explain to the American people just how dire it is to get these people out of the country. And frankly, John, with as bougie as our prison systems are here, and as expensive as they are, sending them down to El Salvador, having our friends take care of them and house them for $6 million, I think is a bang-up bargain.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think the same way and get them out of our country where they can do no further harm. I was talking to Alan Dershowitz earlier in the day on my podcast, and he said, listen, this is the case that Trump should appeal to the Supreme Court. There's all these different injunctions, all of these different temporary restraining orders. They used to be rare. Now they're being handed out like candy in an Easter egg hunt. And I think that right now, of all the cases, I think this one, the president's ability to protect the country from a terrorist by deporting them, is the case that it would become the litmus test for whether these TROs, these restraining orders, are big. That's certainly what Alan Dershowitz, one of the more learned legal experts in this country, thought. Somewhere soon, there's going to be a case that goes up to the Supreme Court on these authorities, and it's going to be interesting to see where John Roberts and his colleagues go.
I think an interesting remedy to all of this judicial overhauling is what we talked about with Chairman Steil, where there's some type of way where you need a conglomerate of judges to oppose something like this. Because otherwise, John, what makes the president any more powerful than any activist judge out there in America?
Yeah, a non-elected judge in a single district could impose a national temporary restraining order. And I think that's the question that a lot of people are coming to grips with. These were so rare that it never came up before this time. I think that's really interesting. There was a lot of news in that Steil interview. First off, he'd like to get election integrity stuff into the CR if the Senate would ever accept it. That they're going to see the next wave of suspicious activity reports on Act Blue. That's a big moment. Put that on the calendar. Could be earlier this week. And then these two incidents still being investigated. Nobody knows if they're fully there. We've got one incident report, one allegation. But the fact that there's this ongoing investigation of two alleged security incidents on the days that President Trump was speaking, those are really significant revelations from the chairman.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to follow up with one more news item, a little bit of a curveball that's not in there. I saw a news blurb that Minnesota GOP has introduced a bill to officially classify Trump derangement syndrome as a psychological disorder.
How about that? It'll be interesting to see if that gets vetoed by. First, if it gets to Tim Walz, then it gets vetoed by Tim Walz, who may potentially suffer from such an ailment.
Where is Tim Walz, by the way?
He's still a governor. He's still out there.
Where's Joe Biden?
I don't know. No one seems to know where he is, right?
I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah, he's been down low, on the down low. One other thing that I think today caught my attention, over the weekend, the Gridiron Dinner, which is one of the big black tie dinners for journalists, in its 104-year history, it's always had a toast to the president. We'll salute to the president, no matter what party, no matter what disputes go on between the news media and the president. That's always been a salute, but this weekend, they skipped it.
Which is amazing, because Donald Trump has been a boon to the profession of journalism. You would think that they would give multiple toasts to someone who has revived their news sources or their news organizations.
You talked about Trump derangement syndrome. There's something in the media, I don't know what we're going to call it, but it has caused a media whose obligation is to be neutral to be so lacking in neutrality. I think this is an episode of that. You know, you can make an argument, maybe they should never have toasted any president, be totally neutral, but once you've done it for 140 years, your omission becomes quite stark.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see. But at any rate, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. I hope that you have already imbibed in your green beer and now you are carrying on with the rest of your evening so that we can all wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning and have a normal Tuesday. We are out of time tonight. We all appreciate you being here with us, and we'll be back here at 6 p.m. Eastern. Everybody, head over to justthenews.com to look out for